A change of target is called for, and Sergeant Buck thought of why he shifts the trail. In a split second or two, gunner Alan Costello will have lined up on the new bearing. And once more, the battery opens fire.
I'd finished school about, I only went through to the end of the 4th form. I didn't go on to the 5th form. And I had put my name down to work in an office, because that's what my father said, oh yes, that'll be your best place. Get into this office. And I started work with a British General Electric company in Customs Street in Auckland. And I worked there for about, I think it was 3.5 years. And I got so sick of it in the end, I said no. They gave me this job, that job. Every couple of weeks I got a different job to do, but they were supposedly grooming me for a management job later. But before it happened, I said no. So I walked out one night and I said, no, I'm finishing up. And lo and behold, I went and joined the Air Force. Not the Army, the Air Force. And a week later they sent me to Papakura, to Whenuapai. And I spent a couple of days up there, and then they said, oh, you're going to Burnham in Christchurch to do your basic training. So I joined the Air Force. And the sole reason behind it was that in those days, university was a lot different to what it is now. And I wanted to go to university, but I had no money. So the government of the day, they offered, join the Air Force and we will put you through university. Not through a flying course, but through a technical course or a office type one, whichever we want. Yeah. So I joined the Air Force. So that's all right. That was, I think that was in November. Don't ask me the year now, I've forgotten. I think it was, but I'll think of it in a minute.
1949.
I'll think of it. Could have been. No, it was before. I think it was 48. Anyway, I joined the Air Force. Was the government of the day had an election in, I think it was October the election was, and one of the things that came up in the election was all the promises they'd made about the university scholarships and all that, that was all scrubbed. So I spent 2 days cursing everybody uphill and down Dale.
A convoy of military trucks rolls into the New Zealand Army camp at Linton, bringing men who have volunteered to serve with the United Nations force in Korea. They're some of the 6,000 who came forward when New Zealand decided last July to send troops to join the British Commonwealth force already fighting alongside the United States and other members of United Nations. From the 6,000 volunteers, 1,100 were chosen to enter camp and do an intensive few months training.
My mother, nothing would shock my mother, no. She, like I was the eldest of 8 children, nothing would shock my mother. But I went away, when I went home that night and said, I've just been up and signed up for Korea, you know. And she said, yeah, so, okay, that was it, you know. And when do you go into camp? And I said, about 3 days' time, you know. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll give you my bank book, which you can keep it. If you want any money out of it, just take it out, you know. It wasn't until about 10 years later I realised that she couldn't get money out of it because I hadn't made any arrangements to do that, because I didn't know anything about things like that then. And I thank God. Fortunately, she didn't get into trouble and she didn't need it.
No. And Dad thought it was okay, But Mum wasn't very happy about me going away to war. And I come back on final leave, and the family get together and everything, you know. And Mum wasn't very happy at all.
On the mountain plateau at Waiouru in the North Island, K-Force's artillery unit, the 16th New Zealand Field Regiment, goes on final manoeuvres with its 25-pounders. The gun used by many of these men in Italy and the Middle East in World War II. Artillery commander of K-Force is Lieutenant Colonel Moody of Dunedin, who watches results as his batteries go into action at the end of their training. Royal New Zealand Air Force Mosquitoes cooperate in the training with dummy low-level and rocket attacks to familiarise the men with a phase of warfare they may meet in Korea. This realistic training is nothing new to a large number of K-Force. Many of its officers are regulars, and many others served in World War II, some in the Navy or Air Force, but most of them in artillery, and for them this is just a refresher course. Among the other ranks too are many gunners of the last war, whose knowledge and experience will help to make K-Force a tough and efficient fighting unit.
If I went down to enrol, they wouldn't let me in. They'd say, "You've got to be joking. Get out of here." Yeah. God. But no, I don't think another war would happen there at all. And I still think that somewhere along the line, someone is going to breathe a bit of sense into that idiot in North Korea.
That dictator in North Korea, somewhere along the line, he's got to be stopped. I think someone eventually will assassinate him. That's my opinion. I don't think there'll be another Korean War as we knew it. No. Not under the United Nations anyway.
K-Force guns, motor transport and stores line the dockside at Wellington for shipment to the Far East. After final leave, the troops arrive in Wellington by train to embark for Korea, where units of the Royal New Zealand Navy have already been operating with United Nations forces for many months. With the 16th Field Regiment in K-Force are maintenance, transport and signal units, base headquarters and a small reinforcement, bringing the total strength to over 1,000. K-Force volunteers, both Maori and Pakeha, have come from every part of New Zealand, from the cities and from the country, from farms and factories, shops and offices, from the King Country and Canterbury, from Northland and Nelson, Marlborough and Manawatu, from Wanganui, Westland and the Waikato. When the men have reported on board and stowed their kit, they return to the wharf to be addressed by the Prime Minister, Mr. Holland. To the men of K-Force, Mr. Holland brings a message of farewell from the people of New Zealand and wishes them good luck and a safe and speedy return. After the Prime Minister's address, the barriers are removed and friends and relatives mix with the troops for a short farewell before the ship sails. As the men of K-Force sail, the situation in Korea is at its worst. But the support these New Zealanders and the people of other member countries are giving to the stand taken by United Nations gives hope that lasting peace may yet be secured in the world.
12 months in Korea, but it worked out at 18 months, an 18 months tour from the time you got training and you got home and all that sort of thing. But when they got a bit short after the ceasefire and they wanted more people to carry it because they were staying there, they came and asked a lot of us if we would sign on again. Well, I signed on again for another 12 months, and so did David Mannering, and that's how we, because we'd always worked in the same place for the first 18 months. We worked together all the time, you know, and then he got transferred to another battery, and I got transferred to agency up to another battery too. But this is the way it worked. And then when we both signed on together, of course, we stayed until the very end, and we came home with the regiment together. And so the whole of our time in Korea, literally, we were within a stone's throw of one another, you know.
You and David.
About 3 years, Dave and I, really and truly.
Since early in the war, the trucks of the New Zealand Army Service Corps have been a familiar sight on the roads of Korea. Wherever battle has carried them, Kiwi guns have gone too. There still has to be a haka no matter where the football's played. But even when the guns aren't firing, the work's still going on. Every hour of 24, there are Kiwis working somewhere in Korea. Clothes get an extra scrub when leave in Tokyo falls due. It's a chance of a lifetime to see the third city of the world, and the boys make the most of it. But the contrast between this fine city and the silent ruins of Korea is too strong to be ignored. They remember the shattered buildings and the refugees who live in caves. When the time comes to go back, they know the importance of the job on hand. When their job is finally done, these men and those yet to replace them will be proud to have been Kiwis in Korea.
No, I never regretted 1 minute of my time. The cold, the wet, and oh God, uncomfortable things, and oh God. But never mind, people getting killed right, left and centre, but I still don't regret any bit of it.
No,
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
If I helped in any way, then I'm happy. 8 years ago, I think it was, someone from Southland, right down the bottom of New Zealand, went up to Korea on a revisit, and he had a heart attack up there, and they had to bring him, he was in hospital up in Korea for some time. Then his family had to bring him back home, and I think it cost the government, aside from what his family did, about, I believe, $30,000. And from then on, the New Zealand government said, you've got to get a full medical insurance, you know. And I said to my doctor, when this last trip was it was 2015. Yeah, 2015. When I was offered to go, by the New Zealand government said, yes, you can go. But when it got to the other branch, they said, sorry, without a full medical insurance, you can't go. So I went along to 6 insurance companies.
I've been back on a revisit to Korea once, and it should have been twice, because around about 2 years ago, there was a revisit all planned. I registered for it, and the day came when I had to fly to Korea. I was all packed up, caught the shuttle into Auckland Airport with all my gear, including my passport. And when I got to the airport, a nice gentleman said, I'll check you in. And he said, have you got your passport there? And I said, oh yes. And I gave him my passport. He put it through the scanner. He said, I'm afraid you're not leaving the country. My passport was expired. I hadn't checked it. And I was the laugh of all the Korea veterans and the laugh of all our village residents in my village. So I never got away to Korea that time, which I was very, very sad about.
It was 1984. It was the first revisit trip that Auckland KVA had been invited to go, and there was 23 people went on it. I went by myself, but there was a lot of wives on it. But my wife was of the opinion that it was being offered to the veterans and not the wives, you know. She said, that's what you're getting thanked for things, so you're going back. So she said, you can go, but she said, I won't go. But she did eventually come in 2001. That was that's right, 2001. And she thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. In fact, I'll take a photo there somewhere of it, down in the Busan Memorial Cemetery. Yeah, but that 1984 one, we also added on to it. We paid ourselves for 21 days travelling through Japan, and we started from down the bottom, Fukuoka, is it, right at the bottom there? Yeah. We went all the way up to Tokyo, but we stopped at various spots on the way, you know. And we spent 14 days in Japan. We did that first before we went across to Korea.
Why do we call it Yes, the Last Parade? Because at our final AGM, which was in Gisborne last year, it was agreed that we would hold a final farewell parade of the national body. Each individual K-Force Veterans branches determine their own affairs, but the national body, which involved all of those in New Zealand, that has been wrapped up. It's no longer existing. And we thought to mark the occasion, it'll be the last one, because we're all getting older now. We're all in our late 80s or early 90s. It'll be the last parade for all of us, for members to come all around from New Zealand. So we've got members coming from Invercargill, Christchurch, Taranaki, Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, Waikato, Hamilton, Auckland and Northland. So that's the last big one of the parade that will all be together.
It's very sad news for us.
Well, we have good memories. of our days in Korea. You know, they were a lot of fun, bit frightening at times, bit noisy at times, but otherwise we were all young, mostly 22, 23 years of age.
That's right.
And when you're young you look at life a bit differently, and we were all, of course, totally bulletproof. Nothing was ever going to happen to us.
I think it's going to be quite interesting because you're going to have, I think they said this, roughly 70 odd, I think is latest I got from David, that will be out on a parade. Probably 45 to 50 of them will be able to walk all right. There'll be some there with wheelchairs, walkers. There will be others that are very ill but will be determined to do something. But what I said to David the other week was, how are they all going to keep together in a line like marching? It's going to be ridiculous.
It's sad really at this stage, but we're all getting older, and of course the final parade, that's what it'll be, the final parade. But as far as the branches go, they're going to keep going, still have meetings, and still get together as mates, because I think right until we're too old to get around entirely, I think all us mates should stick together and still see one another and socialise.
The National Association started in 1973, down in Wanganui, and at that stage there was probably about 500 or 600 joined in the first 2 years, but that's about all. But then gradually, as the word got out, more people joined and more died off, and it was just one of these things. But we got up to, the maximum total that we got up to was 1,400 copies. Yeah, that was the most I got up to, and then it gradually dwindled down from there. Stayed around the 10 and 1100 for a long while, and then circumstances forced the changes, but there's shows you the sort of, that was the second one. Yeah, that was the second one. May 82.
It's been a pleasure and a privilege for me to be associate member and belong to the Hamilton branch of the Korean Vets, and I do it mainly because if my brother Bob had been still alive today, he'd have taken part, because he didn't do everything like that, and I'm honouring him, and I feel very, very privileged. I feel very, very privileged that I'm going to be able to march in that final march, and I'll march proudly and think of him as I do so, and I appreciate that.
I really don't know, but the last I heard was back in January, and they said if any revisits are going to be planned from now on, the branches will hear about it direct from the Korean embassy in Wellington, and what's his name? Oh God, I forget the name of the guy now. No, it is what I was saying. But anyway, he will advise any of the branches that are left, so the branches are to keep in touch with him, every couple of months and just see whether there's anything going. But they really don't know. They think possibly that there will be at least another one or two, but they really couldn't give any indication.